The Sudan Plated Lizard, one of the most underrated reptiles in the entire pet trade. I am so excited to finally have one of these guys, and I want to talk to you today about my first impressions. I've had her for about a week. This is Attila. I'm Adam. You're watching Wicked's Wicked Reptiles. Stick around. Be a full care guide. We're going to do that in a few weeks once I've got to know Attila a little bit better. But I think that just as a general guideline, when you bring an animal home, you want to look at it and kind of observe it and see what it's all about. And I think that this is one of the most impressive lizards to have. They're a diurnal lizard. They're from Eastern Africa, the Sudan Plated Lizard, right? Sudan. And because they're from this place, it's going to be very hot, very dry. So that's what I've done, is I've set this animal up in a custom-made 48 by 18 by 18 inch enclosure, and it's really been a breeze to have her. Really, the humidity is right around 50%, and the heat, of course, is going to be a little bit hotter because they are, well, they're a basking lizard, diurnal lizard, and I see her out basking on the platform that I've given her all the time. She's a little bit skittish because she wasn't held too much. She's had a few owners, but overall, pretty easy to handle. I don't have her now because I did, and right before I pressed record, she started peeing all over me. So I just wanted to give her a break. I've been handling her all day. Now, I want to say that this is not a beginner lizard, and I know I do a ton of videos about beginner this and beginner that. This is more of an intermediate species, in my opinion, similar to a bearded dragon, the way that they're kept. Maybe a little bit more humidity with these guys. They can stand a little bit more humidity, and they are a burrowing species. So I plan next year to maybe give her an outside enclosure for the summer, but definitely try to revamp the enclosure so that she's got more substrate so she can burrow a little bit deeper when she wants to. So let's get right into it. First thing, you're going to notice she's a pretty good size, like maybe the same length as a bearded dragon, very similar in my opinion to the size of a jeweled lacerda. And if you've been following the channel, you know I love jeweled lacerdas. Bob is one of the main guys on the channel that I like to feature because he's so darn cool. People ask tons and tons of questions about him, and I just think that they're really cool. Sudan Plated Lizards, not as well known. Even though jeweled lacerdas aren't super well known, Sudan Plated Lizards are something I didn't even hear of until like 5 years into the hobby. And if you're wondering, do I hear crickets? Yes, it's not just my terrible jokes bombing. When I brought this lizard home, it came with an enclosure, which she's no longer in, and there's still some crickets that I haven't cleaned out yet. But that's, I guess that'll bring us to the diet portion, right? These guys, they're going to eat insects, and they're going to eat vegetation as well. So I like that. I like the fact that it's a balanced diet. They're very easy to feed because you can either feed them something you bought from the grocery store, or if you go to the reptile store once a week like I do, great time to get crickets. They can eat mealworms, which I always have in the fridge, superworms, things like that. And because of that, it's a lot of fun because you get to watch different types of feeding behavior, right? A predatory feeding behavior and then kind of a grazing feeding behavior. So it's like several different species of lizards in one. Because they're a good size, they do look kind of impressive, and they fill up a good size enclosure, and they can be a focal piece in a room if you want. But also they're not big enough where they're going to hurt you. And they've got small jaws. I've never had one bite me so far. Hopefully that's going to be the case throughout. But they do tail whip a lot, and she whips her tail, and there's substrate all over the enclosure, and when I walk in, she'll be kind of curious, and then if she sees I'm going to pick her up, she'll run away from me. She does do that tail whip, but it doesn't hurt at all. It's not like an iguana or anything like that where it might like injure you or lacerate you. So overall, it's a safe lizard to have, and it's a good size, which means it's not going to be delicate. Just don't grab a hold of that tail because they might drop it. But one of the most impressive things to me is how smart and alert and intelligent looking they are. The guy that I got her from said that she will come when you call her name, which I've since changed. I don't know if that's true, but definitely when they see you, especially if they think that you've got food for them, they will come up and greet you at the glass. Now, this individual has not been handled a ton, I don't think. The person that I got her from actually seemed very knowledgeable and like a great keeper for this lizard and animals in general. But I think that because he said to me he gave this lizard to somebody else and then got it back, it's gone through a little bit of stress and some moving around and probably long periods of not being held. And with these types of lizards, a lot of the time you need to forge a relationship in that you gotta hold them all the time. Otherwise they get kind of skittish, they get that fear back, where with leopard geckos and bearded dragons, in my opinion, in my experience, that doesn't really happen. You can go a month without ever holding them and then they're good to go. I mean, this lizard right here on my shoulder, this is Honey. She was one of the breeder leopard geckos, and I haven't featured her in a bunch of videos because she was a little bit thin. She just got finished producing 14 baby leopard geckos this year, but now she's getting her weight back. She's been done for the season. Her last egg she pumped out a few months ago. So these Sudan Plated Lizards, same thing. If you're going to breed them, make sure you do tons of research on them. From what I understand, they're kind of more difficult to breed than, say, a leopard gecko or a bearded dragon or even a jeweled lacerda. But just in general, I'm not thinking about breeding these guys, and the reason that I got this animal is because although it has that drab type of color, look at the scales. It looks like a Hun, in my opinion. Like, have you ever seen the movie Mulan, where everyone has like that armor on them, like the Hun's army? And that's why I named her Attila, because she's got like this plate type of armor, which is why she's called a plated lizard, by the way. And she's going to use that for defense, and also it makes the shedding kind of funny because, like with a snake, it comes off in one piece, or it should. With her, it just kind of flecks off all over the place, and you can see them in these like little shapes of what her scales look like. And their movement is really interesting too. And this lizard, unlike Bob, the lacerda that I've got, doesn't have metabolic bone disease, which is nice. It means that her entire life she's been kept under proper UVB light and been given proper supplementation. And to me, that's really important, because if they don't have that, then they're going to be sick. And although they're fun to watch when they walk around like little T-Rexes like Bob, it's more interesting, or not more interesting, it's more pleasurable to watch an animal that's not suffering in any way. And she seems very healthy. This animal has a lot more intelligence, at least it looks that way, than a lot of other species. Like with a leopard gecko, they look kind of derpy when you go in there and they're just kind of looking around like that, you know. But with Attila, she will go right up to the glass. She knows where you are. She's keeping an eye on you. And then watching her eat is hilarious as well, because she kind of like does that thing where she's like looking and then grabs. I don't know. It's super fun. In my opinion, these guys are not a must-have, but something to consider for sure. If you're looking for something that's more of an intermediate, that you're okay with having a larger enclosure, in my opinion, definitely what I have now is a good size. Maybe even a little bit bigger would be better. And of course, you have the proper resources to feed and make sure that the humidity and the temperature is on point, because they do need a higher temperature, and change the UVB light every 6 months or so. Then that's maybe something that you want to consider. Another thing too is I've posted a few pictures on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm getting a lot of comments like, what the heck is that? Is it a dragon? Like, what is that? It looks very similar to the shape of other lizards, but it doesn't have the same type of scale and same type of lines, right? And even the head is a different shape, and the way that they look at you, it is very unique. And if you want something that's unique but not super hard to care for, right? Like if you want, I don't know, like a caiman lizard or something like that, you might want to start with one of these first, because they're going to ask a lot of questions, your friends and your family, whoever's going to look at it, but it doesn't take, you know, a 4x4x8 type of enclosure. You don't need a big water vessel. You don't need a ton of things that are hard to facilitate. So overall, pretty easy to keep with that UVB thing. Great size and sturdiness. Fun to watch. Great diet, in my opinion. Something that I like is an animal that shows different feeding behaviors. And also, just very beautiful as well. So that's it. I just wanted to go over quick my first experience with a Sudan Plated Lizard. As I get to know her, we're going to do a full care guide, so stay tuned for that if it's something that you want to get in your collection or something that you want to know more about. What do you think about the Sudan Plated Lizard? Do you think Attila is as impressive as I put her out to be? And of course, if you haven't already, I'd appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. And because I do videos twice a week, that means that I'll see you on Monday.